With more than 6,000 small and micro-cap companies listed, if you're looking for the next Apple at the earliest stage, then Channel Check truly is the orchard. The listed companies support Channel Check, so it's free for you, the potential investor, to gain access to institutional quality research from FINRA licensed analysts, advanced market data, industry reports, news, and a growing catalog of videos and webcasts. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and register for Channel Check so you're always up to date on what's going on at the small and microcap data place. Welcome to the virtual Roadshow series presented by Channel Check. This Roadshow features Dr. Sam Lee, President, and James Martin, CFO, the interim co-CEOs of Cocrystal Pharma, NASDAQ ticker symbol COCP. Following a formal presentation, they're joined by Robert LeBoyer, Senior Research Analyst for Noble Capital Markets, a FINRA licensed SEC-registered broker-dealer, for a Q&A session featuring questions that were submitted by the live audience. You can find Noble's research on Cocrystal Pharma on channelcheck.com or by clicking the link in the description. With that, I am pleased to present Sam and James.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the audience for attending and thank Noble Capital Markets for holding this virtual roadshow. We'll start off forward-looking statements. We always encourage you to read these and also our SEC filings. So Cocrystal is a antiviral therapeutic company distinguished from the vaccines that you see out there. We are not a vaccine. We cure the diseases. And the way we do this is by advancing our programs in high-value antiviral drug targets. Our drug targets that we advance are clinically validated with mechanisms of actions, and we have a proprietary drug discovery platform technology that's used to develop our compounds. So the investment highlights of this company is, again, we target large global markets for the treatment of acute and pandemic viral diseases. We have a very powerful and well-developed proprietary drug discovery platform. We have a number of programs. However, our focus currently is on the COVID-19 and influenza programs that we are advancing in the clinical trials, and we hope to move forward in 2022. We have a collaboration with Merck on Influenza IAB. This collaboration was a 2-year collaboration that has the opportunity to get up to 156 million in milestones and royalties. The leadership team here at Cocrystal, both the officers, directors, are very seasoned and have a long history in biotech. We have very cost-efficient operations, and we have a clean capital structure, and we have sufficient funding for near-term planned operations for the next couple of years. Here's a list of our pipeline. As you can see, we have 3 COVID programs. These are each distinguished by their mechanisms of actions, and you can see to the far right the milestones. We have planned clinical operations beginning in 2022 on 2 of our programs. That's the oral protease inhibitor and the protease inhibitor. Also in influenza, we have 2 programs. As I had mentioned, we have one with Merck, which is an AB program. And we'll talk more about that collaboration, all of these as we go through. But we also have an influenza A program that's fully owned by us, and that's already begun a clinical trial that's been initiated in Australia. And we expect data from that in 2022. We have a Hepatitis C program that's been developed through a phase 2. We're currently seeking a partner. And we also have a Norovirus program that's early stage. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Sam Lee to talk about the programs more specifically.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Robert, for the introduction. We're very delighted to give you an update on the COVID and influenza programs and also talk about the platform technology. This slide, just to give you a snapshot of the traditional drug discovery development process. This is really long and complex, and with the Cocrystal platform technology, we skip the first to 4th step. We immediately initiate the lead discovery. If you go to the next slide, what's unique about Cocrystal platform technology? Our starting point is X-ray crystals, and once you have X-ray crystals, we developed the high resolution X-ray crystal structures, and we select the drug binding pocket using that computational approach and X-ray structures, and quickly complete the hit to lead process and lead optimization. Once again, we are developing the small molecule direct acting antivirals. We're not working on the vaccines or host targeted compounds. If we go to the next slide. We apply our platform technology for developing multiple broad spectrum antiviral compounds. CC31244 is a good example. This has a super broad spectrum coverage with the high barrier to drug resistance. We're very proud of this compound. We complete the phase 2A study with this CC31244. Now, next slide. Now, with the platform, approach that I'm going to briefly go over our SARS-CoV, program as well as influenza. Go to the next slide. We're still going through the COVID-19 pandemic. If you recall, we had a first, coronavirus was a Wuhan strain. Now the predominant variant is a Delta strain. Now we're dealing with the Omicron. And this RNA virus is a rapidly mutate. Unfortunately, we have to deal with the newly emerging variants. So the compounds to cure these diseases has to be broad spectrum and also dealing with the newly emerging coronavirus variants. If you go to the next slide. And we again apply the platform approach. As you can see, the first thing we develop is a crystal structures, SARS-CoV-2 main protease in left panel, and the middle is a SARS coronavirus 1, or that's the original, the SARS coronavirus, and it will also have a MERS coronavirus crystals. This is a really important toolbox. How we develop the broad spectrum coronavirus compounds. So with this platform approach, we developed the oral, intranasal, now IV, lead molecules. All of our compounds binds the highly conserved amino acid residue we call cysteine 145. This is an essential residue. If you block this residue, the viral protease activities is immediately stopped. So we already report that our compounds are showing the broad spectrum antiviral activity against all of the SARS coronavirus, as well as MERS. That includes the Delta variants, Alpha, Beta, Gamma. Now we're working on the Omicron, so we will have new data against Omicron. These compounds are showing also good safety profiles and pharmacokinetic properties, and we also complete the in vivo efficacy using animal model. If you go to the next slide. Just briefly remind you that the SARS coronavirus is a large RNA virus, enters the host cell. ACE2 receptor is a key receptor, interact with the spike protein and immediately introduce the large RNA genome into the host cell. Then it produces the polyprotein. You can see that polyprotein second dot. The polyprotein at this stage, this enzyme is inactive. So the protease, the viral protease, main or 3CL protease comes in, start chopping this down to small pieces. Then it's called non-structural protein. So from once you have this, small pieces of enzyme, then it initiate the replication and transcription. So if you block this protease, the activity using this compound, then it's blocking the downstream. And also we're working on replication inhibitors. So this is once again, this is a well-validated mechanism of action. If you go to the next slide. The COVID-19 program current status is I'm going to start with the oral inhibitors, the oral broad spectrum protease inhibitors. We already selected several lead molecules, and we're going to nominate the one molecule pretty soon. And we're also working on scale-up synthesis for API campaign. So we initiate the IND enabling study in early next year. We're going to also initiate the phase 1 study next year. Next, the molecule is the, oh, sorry, can you go back, Jim? Sorry. Next molecule is the replication inhibitor. This is still early stage, discovery stage, but we believe that in the future, coronavirus regimen would be the combination therapy, as you see in HCV and HIV. So protease inhibitors will be the backbone of the treatment, and also we want to add the additional inhibitors. So the replication inhibitors will be really important for future broad spectrum combination regimen. And finally, we have an intranasal broad spectrum lead molecule already nominated, CDI 45205. This compound was a license from Kansas State, and we complete the tox study, compounds showing the good safety profile. We already initiate the API synthesis, and we will complete the IND enabling study next year and initiate phase 1 study 2022. If you go to the next slide. The clinical trial design for both compounds, the oral and intranasal protease inhibitors. As you can see, the phase 1 study is a standard. The healthy volunteer, randomized, placebo-controlled SAD/MAD studies, and it would be pretty, straightforward. And phase 2 study that we're looking at the non-hospitalized patients with the mild and moderate COVID-19 symptoms, and our primary endpoint would be the viral load. If you go to the next slide, Influenza A. If you go to the next slide. Thank you, Jim. Influenza A, last pandemic was in 2009, and we're still dealing with the pandemic influenza infection as well as a seasonal infection. Yes, there are approved drugs, Tamiflu, and recently approved, Xofluza. Both compounds, have the drug resistance issue. Roughly about 10% of circulating influenza strains are drug resistant against both the Tamiflu and Xofluza. So the compounds that we're developing should be not only broad spectrum coverage, it should have an excellent drug resistance profile. If you go to the next slide. If you look at the viral replication process in influenza infected cell, influenza virus brings the replication complex. You can see the middle 3 circles, PB1, PB2, and PA. The very first step is a PB2 protein. It hijacks the host mRNA, and if you block this step, that it immediately blocks the viral replication, and as a result, you cure influenza infection. If you go to the next slide. We apply the platform approach as is shown here, the crystals that we use, the seasonal as well as pandemic PB2 crystals, and you can see the compounds binds the highly conserved binding pocket. In the middle is the yellow, the blob is the compound. The compounds, not only showing the broad spectrum antiviral activities, it also active against the Tamiflu resistant as well as the Xofluza resistant influenza strains. So we're really excited about this compound. We complete the IND enabling study, and we also received the Australian regulatory approval a couple of months ago, and then we're going to initiate the phase 1 study now. So if you go to the next slide. Influenza IAB, this is a different target. We're working on replication complex inhibitor. If you go to the next slide, we complete the 2-year collaboration with the Merck team. We're very proud of this platform technology. Again, this is this collaboration validates our platform technology. we produced very interesting the preclinical lead molecules during collaboration. We received the milestone payment, upfront milestone payment and research funds, and Cocrystal will be eligible to receive up to 156 million in milestone payments, as well as royalties. If you go to the next slide. So Norovirus, go to the next slide. Thank you. It's a huge market. More importantly, this is a terrible viral disease, and with the no approved therapy. When you have this infection, it's also highly contagious, and it causes the acute gastroenteritis. And if you look at the US alone, 19 million to 20 million cases, huge economy burden. We're really excited about this program because the next slide summarizes the, Jim, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. We're working on protease as well as, replication inhibitors. The protease inhibitors, the compound we license, as well as our Cocrystal own compounds, the SARS-2 protease inhibitors also have really good activity against, Norovirus, protease, cell-based assay, as well as the biochemical assay. So this is a really jump start. We are one step away to select the lead molecule. We're really excited about this, compounds that we have. The preclinical lead selection would be done, next year or possibly 2023. If you go to the next slide. Oh, I'm going to turn it over to Jim. Jim's going to go over Hep C program. Jim?
Great, thank you, Sam. And sorry about the fingers on the slides back there, but here we go. So Hepatitis C program is one that there still continues to be a significant unmet need. You can see that with over 58 million people worldwide having this disease and over almost 300,000 deaths a year. So you can see there in bullet point number 4, the rate of new hepatitis C infections in the US reported by the CDC in 2018 was 4 times as high as 2010. So it's not something that's going away. Unfortunately, we have a drug use problem here in the US that just exacerbates this problem. So there are treatments out there, and the evolution of this treatment has been shorter therapies, beginning with AbbVie that, well, actually it went back to a 24, but I'll start with AbbVie that had a 12-week treatment, which really took most of the market share when they came out with that. But then actually it was Gilead, my apologies. And then Gilead had a 12-week treatment, and AbbVie came out with an 8-week treatment. That 8-week treatment took 50% of AbbVie's market away from them. So what we're looking at here is a 4 to 6 week treatment, and that's the purpose of this compound. And we've taken this compound through a phase 2 clinical trial, and we're currently looking for a partner with this. I mean, we've had favorable results. It's a once-a-day orally administered liver targeting drug. It's the best in class NNI, and there are the other treatments out there do not contain an NNI. So this is an additional molecule that can be added to those cocktail therapies. So there's a lot of potential opportunity for this. I spoke earlier about our seasoned leadership team, and briefly just go through. You can see Dr. Sam Lee and myself, who's on the call today. But in addition to that, we have our scientific advisory board, which is led by Dr. Roger Kornberg, who is not only a Nobel Prize winner, but he's also our chairman of the company outside of the scientific advisory board. And we also have another Nobel Prize winner, Michael Levitt, and a number of distinguished, experienced and well-established doctors that are on the scientific advisory board. And Sam has a very close relationship with them on the science side, and able to call any of them at a single moment. They've helped guide us on the science side as we move forward with all of our programs. We are a company that expects to have success, and therefore we build a portfolio of patents around everything we do. So whether it's the coronavirus, influenza, we make sure that all of our work is protected, because when these programs do have commercial success, we would expect that there will be challenges. And so we make sure that we are being very upfront and protecting everything we do. Financial snapshot, we have here we have over 83 million market cap. We have a very robust volume in our stock. We have 61 million, 0.6 in cash available, and that comes with no debt on our books, and we don't have any significant warrants or preferred shares. So it's a very clean balance sheet. We have just over 100 million shares outstanding, and that's 97 million fully diluted. So it's a very clean balance sheet. We have cash to take us through. Our milestones are significant over the next couple of years, and for biotech, we're in pretty good position there. So again, to summarize, Cocrystal, we target large global markets for the treatment of both acute and pandemic viral diseases. We do have a very powerful platform that was developed early in the company's history and has been improved upon, and is a proven platform, as noted by Merck coming to us and having us develop compounds for our Influenza IAB program that we've collaborated with them. We are, as an antiviral company, we're very focused right now on COVID-19 and influenza. Influenza has been a little bit quiet. All the attention is on COVID-19, but it continues to be a significant unmet need. And much like COVID, there's been a number of variants that have plagued the market and plagued the drugs that are currently out there. Again, we have a very strong seasoned leadership team. We have clean, efficient operations, good capital structure, and we have cash in the bank now for their near-term future needs. So that concludes the presentation, and we'll move, I presume, over to speak with Robert LeBoyer and Channel Check.
Thank you very much for that presentation. That was a nice detail on the technology and the company's business strategy. We have a lot of questions from the audience, and let me start by asking about the 3 COVID-19 candidates. And are they designed for monotherapy, or do you anticipate combinations of one or more, or how do you see the market developing at this point?
Yes, I'll take that question. Our strategy is, monotherapy, as Pfizer and Merck and Gilead demonstrated. We're going to go with the protease inhibitor first, and however, for long run, based on again HCV and HIV, the evolution of this RNA virus is really powerful. They will mutate. They will develop the drug resistance. That's our assumption, even if we have a best compound with the excellent drug resistance profile. So we would like to have additional compounds, the broad spectrum compound, for potential the combination therapy in order to cure the coronavirus infection.
Okay, and how would you differentiate your COVID-19 programs under development from the products that are already on the market from some of the major pharma companies? And what would you see as advantages to yours?
Sure, good question. Merck and Gilead, their compounds, nucleoside inhibitor, so it's a completely different mechanism of action targeting the polymerase. Both compounds have the weakness. Merck compounds has a safety genotox issue, and Gilead compounds is only for IV. The Pfizer's compounds, it demonstrated really good the clinical efficacy. However, that compound with they have to co-dose with the ritonavir, which is the HIV protease inhibitor. It's also strong CYP inhibitor, so PK booster. So this combination approach is with the ritonavir could be potentially issue because of the drug-drug interaction and CYP inhibition. It's a really we'll have to see what kind of clinical the outcome will come out. The co-crystal approach is that we want to have a single agent protease inhibitor without any PK booster. That's our current strategy.
Okay, similar question, which you touched on, was how your oral protease inhibitors differ from Merck's molnupiravir and Pfizer's Plazovid and ritonavir candidates. So just briefly, just touch on those.
Yes, I think the regimen would be very similar, 5-day treatment for non-hospitalized patients. That's we share the similar approach, and I think at the end of the day, therapeutic index is really important. As I mentioned, our compounds, the potency compared to Pfizer protease, and now our compound potency is significantly better. So we believe that the combined with better potency and better PK profile and safety profile, I think it would would be in a very interesting position.
Yes, agreed. And just in that same idea, do you anticipate any issues with manufacturing or making the active ingredient? And could you also give the status of the intranasal and oral inhibitors in clinical trials or preclinical?
Yes. First question about the chemistry API synthesis. We do not anticipate any issues. We already developed a process for intranasal as well as oral lead molecules. And in terms of the second question was, Robert, can you remind me second question?
Sure. The first part was on the manufacturing and synthesis.
Yeah.
The second was the clinical status and
yes,
where you are clinically for the various formulations.
Sure. The we submit the pre-IND briefing documents to FDA. That includes our phase 1, phase 2, clinical trial design. We're waiting for their FDA's response. I think the phase 1 studies are again straightforward. We want to get on it and complete the phase 1 study quick as possible. And the phase 2 study, I think FDA feedback is would be really helpful, and we will, based on their recommendation, we'll look at the phase 2 trial design very carefully. Okay.
Great. Okay, and one of the questions that you touched on, but comes up, is whether your antiviral inhibitors will be able to address the Omicron variant and other existing variants. The viruses by nature tend to have genetic variation and mutate over time. So what do you expect the situation for the virus and your treatment to be?
Robert, that's a really important question. I think the coronavirus has the capability to introduce mutation rapidly. Also, it has recombination capability, so it could actually, based on Omicron variant, not only mutates themselves, and also it could take the different coronavirus genome, put it in their genome. It's been unfortunately well documented. So having said that, this future compounds that it has to cover not only the existing SARS coronavirus variants, we have to anticipate the other, coronavirus, we call common cold coronaviruses. That includes 229E and others. We have to have a super broad spectrum, the coverage. I think that not only that, we really have to focus on the where we target in terms of active site. As I mentioned, our platform approach is really powerful because we pinpoint the key residue, cysteine 145 is an absolutely essential residue. There are compounds all targeting that residue, and then showing the potencies coming out of that. Also, broad spectrum is the targeting that particular area. So we feel pretty confident that our compounds will active against existing variants as well as future newly emerging variants as well.
Yeah, one of the things about the virus, and one of the things that you touched on in your presentation, is that viruses normally mutate over time, the same way that one needs a new flu shot every year because of genetic variation in the surface proteins that renders previous vaccines ineffective, is the same type of thing that people in virology have been expecting for coronavirus.
Yes.
And one of the slides that you presented showing the different areas of the viral life cycle and the point where you intervene, I thought was important. And would it be correct to say that your drug is directed at an early step in viral replication and would act before a lot of these variations are formed, so it would nip the virus very early and avoid some of the problems with the end product of the viral particles?
Yes, so we hope to see. We're currently, trying to isolate the drug resistance against our compound. So far, we believe that this compound, performs really well. That's a still open question. The Pfizer protease inhibitors, they have not reported yet the drug resistance. However, remdesivir already, reported the stable remdesivir drug resistance variants they isolated from immunocompromised patients. So it's no question the virus will mutate. The question is which mechanism of action would suppress efficiently that the drug resistance. I think that, as I mentioned, we believe the protease inhibitor would be a good backbone strategy. However, in order to deal with the potential mutation or drug resistance, I think the combination therapy would be a way to go.
If I could add to that, Sam likes to call it the dual warhead between the protease inhibitor and the replication inhibitor. So we attack it in two different areas. In addition to that, I just want to note that in the major variants so far before Omicron, we've shown antiviral activity in our compounds. So far, our compounds look really good with the variants. And as Sam said, we expect to see the same in Omicron, but we're currently evaluating that.
Yeah, one of the Robert, I just want to point out one thing, that our platform, technology is, yes, we use for developing the broad spectrum compounds, but I recently presented this at the World Antiviral Congress, that our platform also looking at the new variants. So we have an X-ray crystal for beta variants. That's the only variant has a protease mutation. We already got the crystal structure. We actually demonstrate that our compounds binds exactly the original Wuhan strain and the beta strain, exactly the same binding mode at atomic level. And the potency also shows the same potency. So I think this is our platform not only developing for the broad spectrum compounds, but future any variants we can actually crystallize. We can look at the binding mode at the atomic level. If there's any issues with the potency, we'll know immediately.
Great. Yeah, that's that idea of early intervention sounds like it could be a very broad strategy. So moving on to the influenza programs, could you tell us a little bit about the phase 1 trial in Australia?
Sure. Phase 1 trial is again healthy volunteer study, and we're going to assess the safety of our compound based on the tox study, GLP 14-day tox study. Compound safety profile is really good. So I think that we will have an initial readout sometime 2022, probably based on our timeline. It's sometime August. We'll have the draft report. As soon as we have an initial readout, we will do press release.
Okay, great. And in the influenza program, you have the Influenza A and then the collaboration with Merck on Influenza AB. Could you just distinguish and discuss how they're different scientifically or clinically?
Yeah, sure. I'll do the scientific rationale, and then Jim could make any comments business side. The Influenza A program that we have, 42344, that's PB2 inhibitor. That compound is truly designed for pandemic and seasonal influenza A. Influenza A strains are responsible for pandemic influenza infection. So I think this is a really important antiviral agent for future pandemic, as well as the seasonal. Influenza AB program, Merck collaboration, it's we're looking at the replication complex, a different target, and also we developed this very potent broad spectrum influenza compound. So CC31244 influenza A compound, that's a Cocrystal 100%. Jim, you want to make any additional comment?
I'll just say that, I just emphasize we do own the Influenza A 100% that we developed, and we do have the AB collaboration with Merck. Both of these are developed as monotherapies, but there is potential to combine them in cocktail therapies. As you know, Robert, most successful treatments are cocktail therapies in the antiviral world. So they're both distinguished by their targets, and I think that they can also be combined together.
Great. And could you just elaborate a little bit on what you think the potential markets for these influenza products would be?
Well, I'll start that one, Sam. I'll say that worldwide, I think it was in our slides too, worldwide there's over 1 billion cases with 3 to 5 million per year and up to 650,000 deaths annually worldwide. In the US alone, we have almost 60 million cases of influenza expected from the CDC this year, and 26 million hospital visits, and up to 65,000 deaths expected in the US alone. So there continues to be, unfortunately, there continues to be a significant unmet need in this market. And, I think that we have developed, as Sam will attest, compounds that will address the market with both being broad spectrum and very potent.
Okay, great. And just turning to the finances, you mentioned that you have 60 million in cash, no warrants or any outstanding debt. How long do you think this cash balance will last for the development programs? Can you get through the next year with milestones? And what are your plans financially for the company in development?
Great question. So we do have cash to get us through 2022, as you had questioned, and beyond, as I said earlier. We will continue to evaluate each program as we progress them forward. The reality of developing biotech, programs is that maybe not all of them will make it to commercialization. If they do, great. We hope they do. So what we're going to do is continue to evaluate as these, simple as these programs progress. We're going to evaluate where to invest our funds to move these forward. If they all hit, great. I'm sure when you have something like that, we'll be able to get the additional funding needed to move those forwards. We are very active in non-dilutive funding as we're moving these programs forward. There's been a lot of attention from the federal government on our programs, and so we always open to that.
Okay, great. Okay, I don't think there are any more questions. I think we've covered all of the topics. Are there any concluding remarks that you'd like to make?
Sam, do you have any?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I think that thank you for the opportunity again. We really believe that our platform technology is fully optimized for developing the broad spectrum antiviral compounds. I think it's a really wonderful opportunity for us to use this platform technology and solve the COVID pandemic, as well as a future, viral, diseases. And I think that, we're also 2022. We're very excited about the multiple clinical trials, as Jim pointed out. Our pipeline, summarized that we plan to have 3 phase 1 trials 2022 alone. So I think that's we have enough money and we have enough capability to accomplish our goals. So we're very excited. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Robert, I'll add to that we are developing our programs towards commercialization. Along the way, we will continue to be opportunistic for partnerships and collaborations. In addition to that, I think that we have significant milestones coming up in 2022 with both our COVID-19 and our influenza programs. I kind of overemphasize that we are a therapeutic company because there's a lot of news out there on vaccine markets, and believe it or not, sometimes we get confused vaccines versus therapeutics when they're both needed, but they are both very different. And in this market, we're seeing a lot of repurposed compounds, and people will see that these are able to move quickly because they were developed for something else, and they show some activity, and they're trying to get anything they can out there, which is important. Our compounds have been developed strictly for our indications in both influenza and in COVID-19. So it takes a little bit more time to move them forward, but they are definitely showing a great, potent, broad spectrum activity in these antiviral markets, and we'll continue to move these programs forward as efficient as possible, as quickly as possible, to bring as much shareholder value as we can.
Great. This has been a very informative presentation. One of the things that I've always liked about the company was the technology and the early stage point of action on the polymerase inhibitors. So now that things are moving into clinical trials and you have milestones that will give proof of concept and clinical efficacy, I think it's a great time, and you should be really hitting your stride in the next year with data and milestones and proof that this technology is actually going to produce real therapeutics that can have clinical benefit for the patients. So thank you both. This has been a very interesting discussion, and look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this virtual roadshow presentation brought to you by Channel Check. View our YouTube channel for more video content, including C-suite interviews, virtual roadshows, and conference presentation replays. New content is added regularly, so subscribe below to stay up to date. Visit channelcheck.com or click the link in the description to access equity research, news, and advanced market data on this and 6,000 other small and microcap companies.